What's up, guys? First and foremost, trail camera giveaway. Like, comment, subscribe. November 15th, we're giving away a trail camera. Number two, it is booking season. We are booking clients all over the dang country. If you want us to come to your property, write a comprehensive report, how to plant your food plots, when to plant your food plots, what to plant in your food plots, timber stand improvement, maybe how to make money on your property, how to pull bucks off your neighbor's property, tree stands, trail cameras, the whole ball of wax, guys. whitetaillandmanagement@gmail.com. Shoot me a email. We're booking up fast. It happens every year, so I'm warning you now. Let's get into the video. How to kill bucks in the October lull, the dreaded October lull. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think the October lull is actually one of my favorite times of the year to hunt. Why do I say that? So let's think about a state like Iowa, which is where we are today. You know, your opener's on the October 1st, and we're gonna call that early season, but then the season quickly transitions into that pre-rut, but before that we get that October lull. And what happens in that October lull is really velvet shed wasn't too far in the past. And why do I say that? Is because when velvet shed takes place, testosterone rises, we all know this, but also deer start laying down sign, okay? Start laying down a lot of rubs because they no longer have the velvet on their antlers. So the perk to that is if you find sign, it's pretty damn new. You know what I'm saying? One thing we do need to keep in mind about the October lull is science does show us that as October progresses, that the hunting is better and the deer movement is in fact more and more. So this lull is kind of really not a thing. What happens, I think, is these states like your Iowa, or you know, your Wisconsin's, any of these states, what happens is the deer get used to the pressure, and then maybe they get a little bit I don't know, they're not as lax as they once were. So what it comes down to is you really got to start reading sign. Now that lull is a time in which scrapes might start popping up, and if they do, you should probably pay attention to them. But the one thing I'm really focusing on this time of year is probably rub lines. They're still semi-patternable, and I would say that they're going to be for the next 10 days or so. Given this lull, let's call the lull, I don't know, the 8th through the 18th. We'll call it those 10 days. The October lull, you know, if I'm reading the sign, it's kind of it's a time of the year in which they're still pretty patternable for the most part. So if I can read that sign and make sense of that sign and start finding the double-sided rubs on these trail systems, figuring out that bucks are coming and going, that's one way to pick up on where these deer are bedded, and ultimately maybe even where they're feeding. So the lull is still a time in which I would be focusing on food, maybe not sitting on food, but having food in mind. All right, deer are going to here. Maybe they're not moving a ton, so I need to cut them off here in this interception point or intersecting point. But in fact, you still do need to know, you know, where your food sources are and stuff like that at the end of the day. But one thing that can throw a wrench in that I don't necessarily know is going to be the case this year, and this is where I want you guys to chime in the comments, is the acorns. Because last year we had this record acorn crop. And I had acres upon acres of food plots, but it didn't matter because if the deer even made it to them, it was at midnight. So this year, what I've noticed across the country is acorns seem to be pretty moderate, if not lower. And I know some East Coast guys have said differently, and maybe, you know, it depends on your neighborhood. But what happens at the end of the day is if we have an acorn year, like I'm going to call this year, you know, 30 to 40% of the drop compared to last year, there's less trees dropping. So if we can find those trees, and we find those trees in the transition areas on the way to those food plots, you know, between the bedding and the food, and now we find that tree that's raining down acorns, and it might only rain down for a week, it might rain down for 3 days, whatever it is. But if we in-season scout, which you should be doing, go in and find these trees. Sometimes I'd sit over that tree that's raining down the acorns instead of going to that first scrape outside the bed like I talk about quite often, guys. So this would allow me to be a little bit more lax in my approach, not be too aggressive. And if I can still kill them on this oak or acorn flat or whatever it might be that's dropping acorns this time of the year, I think that's a great option. So if I had to create the perfect scenario for an October lull hunt, I would know where the bedding is due to trail cameras or prior scouting or even in-season scouting. I would understand where that is, think about how that location plays out for a northwesterly wind. And why do I say that? Because northwesterly winds correlate to a cold front very often. And wherever that bedding area might be. Hopefully there's an oak and or scrape, maybe both, in this general vicinity on its way out to an alfalfa and or cut cornfield. That's the perfect scenario for killing a buck in the October lull. Now, weather is something that will probably dictate how far, or I should say how close you need to get to the bedroom, guys. So there's a couple different things here I'm telling you to focus on, but that scenario right there, if you can paint that picture, and maybe the variables are a little bit different. Maybe there's still some beans that deer headed out to. Whatever the case is, let that weather kind of dictate how aggressive do I need to get today. Because if it's warmer, he's not going to move very far, and maybe I got to get a little bit more aggressive. And don't be afraid of the warm fronts, guys. I'd say about 85% of my bucks have been killed on warm fronts. I think people get way too caught up in watching the TV shows and telling you to only hunt cold fronts, and that's not always necessary. So if it's a southwest wind and not the northwest wind, like that's okay. Just realize that if it's a little bit warmer, you got to get a little bit closer. And I think you guys will have some luck using this strategy during the October lull. So at the end of the day, guys, bedding, acorn flat / oaks / maybe some scrapes on the way out to alfalfa and or cut corn. If you can put that scenario together or something close to it, guys, there's a damn good chance that you're going to kill yourself an October lull buck.